7 o'clock. Let me call the Wednesday, November 14th, 2012 Boothbay Harbor Selectmen's meeting to order. Introduce our board, and we have Julia Latter in the audience, our financial officer. I don't see Mike Tomko. Where is he? Jeez. Kelly Biggis, our recording secretary. Tom Wooden, the town manager. J.D. Warren, selectman. Arthur Hathaway, selectman. Valerie Augustine, select person. I'm Bill Hamblin, the chair, and Bob Spillane cannot be with us tonight, so it is just the four of us. The first order of business on the agenda is to approve the minutes from last time, which includes two sets of minutes. One is from the Fish Pier workshop that was at 7 p.m. on October 22nd, and the second is the regular selectmen's meeting at 7 p.m. on October 22nd. So do I hear motions?
I'll move we approve both of the minutes.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve both sets of minutes. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? I'll approve. The next order of business is financials, and I'll turn the floor over to Julia.
Total revenue year to date is $3,776,936. Total expenses year to date, $3,130,358. Our revenue is about 1.3% over what it was compared to this time last year, and our expenses are 1.1% under. Does anyone have any questions on the revenue and expenses?
Are those just random fluctuations?
Yes.
It's not that we expect anything.
Half weeks in between cycles.
Yeah.
Total accounts payable, $409,391.95. And the bank balance as of today is $2,731,000.
So overall message is we're on course. We're holding our own. We'll make it to the next tax collection period. Any other comments from the selectmen? Tom?
No.
Looks good.
Thank you, Julia. That brings us to town manager announcements. Tom, you have the floor.
The only one I have this evening is you should all have an application for the planning board for a position that's available on the planning board, an alternate member. Andrew Shepard of Samoset Road has applied. He is not able to attend tonight because he's in South Carolina, but I would ask that the board appoint Andrew Shepard as an alternate member of the planning board.
Do I hear a motion?
I move that we approve Andrew Shepard as an alternate member of the planning board.
Second.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. I don't know Andrew directly, but he has been recommended to me by my relatives, and I trust them reasonably well. So I think it's a good thing to do. Any other discussion?
Nope.
All in favor? Motion carries. I am delighted that we are getting the planning board back to where it should be.
So mine. That's the only announcement I have this evening.
Tom, I have a question on that note. What is the current status of our planning board? Do we still have some spots open?
We still have 2 regular positions and 1 alternate.
Okay.
Okay.
That's for all you out
And
there.
that's up on the town website, and I think you have it on your Facebook page.
Yeah, well, let me make the usual plea. Anybody who's interested in the fun and exciting world of planning board, please come to the town hall, get an application from Tom Wooden, and you too can participate. The next order of business is public hearings. We have one. We have an application from A Place Like Home for victualer's license. This is a Class D license. Is this new?
Yeah.
I think it is.
It is.
Yes, there we go. Yeah, it's a new application. At 12A Oak Street. Do I hear a motion?
I'll move we approve.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve a victualer's license for A Place Like Home at 12A Oak Street, Boothbay Harbor. The owner's name is Roseanne Taylor. Any further discussion?
Nope.
All those in favor? Motion carries. That brings us to our first public forum. And the intent of this public forum is to comment on business that's on the agenda. And I should add that in addition to what's printed on the agenda, which is the St. Andrews Task Force Activity Report, the update of the Comprehensive Plan Committee, report on the walkability study, we also are going to, I think, talk about the bicycle pedestrian plan. Is that not correct?
That's correct. I think Bob Font said he'd be here by 7:30.
Okay. So it may come later in the evening, but it is on the agenda. So with that, I'll open it up to the floor for any questions, comments. A quiet crowd. Again, please stand, state your name.
Oh, okay. Frank Fassett, Boothbay Harbor. I was at the meeting in Boothbay, and there was talk about some solar projects that are happening down here, having to do with CMP, looking to get municipalities and some roof space and things like that.
I saw that.
Is that anything they've approached Boothbay Harbor about?
To my knowledge, they have not approached Boothbay Harbor at all.
I have talked with a representative about that, and they were talking about maybe hooking our generator into that system. And I've asked them to come up with a proposal on how to do that, but I haven't gotten anything back yet.
Yeah, I think the deadline's coming up too. I'm surprised that they haven't been more talk of it because, I mean, there was a lot of questions still. You know, the basic gist of it was that Central Maine Power is trying to find a way to alleviate the high demand times down here in the summer. And one of them was to get some roof space, and municipalities were who they were targeting, and they would come in and install the solar panels, and then the municipality would receive 2 cents less per kilowatt hour charge. And at the end of the 7 years, I think it was, the municipality could purchase the equipment at a very reduced rate, and then you know, pump it back into the grid to offset their bills. So you said you're waiting to hear back from them?
When we talk about the roof, this roof here is very, just slightly pitched. It's not a regular roof like a normal house would be. And the gentleman that I spoke with didn't seem to be particularly interested in that type of roof. He wanted one that was more on an angle. He also wanted to know which direction the building faced and so forth. So when I told him that, he said, well, do you even have a generator there? And I said, yeah, we do have a new generator here, and he was going to look into that option.
Okay.
So.
Okay, great.
Do you know if CMP is getting subsidized for the capital costs of the solar?
I honestly don't know all that much about it, other than the CMP tried to pique everybody's interest by saying that in order for us we have to make infrastructure changes down on the peninsula to keep up with the power demand. It's going to cost you guys $18 million. And so what they're trying to do, you know?
The company that's facilitating it is Grid Solar.
Okay,
and
right.
they're a member of the chamber.
Okay.
And I did connect them with all the town managers and all the different people.
They what?
And I connected them with the different town
Okay.
managers. And it was, to my understanding, I think November 9th was the date that it had to be in, but they were looking at different companies to help facilitate it. I don't think they were the ones that are going to say, put the generator or the piece together.
Yeah.
They were looking for different companies that wanted to present a bid to do that and tie in. And they're the ones who, it's the only project like this in the country. And they're working on it instead of having to pay $18 million for the
Right.
trunk line that comes down.
Yeah.
I can't think of a worse location than the coast of Maine in order to make solar a going proposition.
They're looking at solar and other things too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not, I think that any sort of energy
So if
generating.
you want to talk to the gentleman, his name is Steve Finchman, and I can connect you if you like.
Well, if I mean, in my municipality, I will.
Well, I'm like, if you're interested in what the.
Yeah. I mean, I would think if they're looking for municipalities, they'd be looking for any roof space, really.
I would just say, Bill, that there are many solar projects, there are some solar projects that are very successful and certainly met the engineering demand and bettered that. And so I think that solar is certainly feasible on the coast.
I overstated the case. It is not a match made in heaven, but there are certainly unique applications where it makes a lot of sense, and it does work. Anybody else?
Ellen Farman, Boothbay Harbor. Last night we had a task force meeting, and first of all, I want to thank Arthur
Hathaway for coming a week or so ago. It's very nice to see another selectman up there. And hopefully he got some info out of there. And Valerie's been doing a great job. We had reports of people that were running on the election day, running the petition for us. Everybody gave a very good okay. Southport did, Boothbay did, and Edgecombe did. But we're being told people were uncomfortable down here and they were disruptive and everything like that. And I just would like to know what happened.
I can only speak to what I saw when I came to vote. The table was set out in the foyer. There was a modest crowd around the table. I didn't see...
Was there anybody loud or obnoxious?
There was certainly nobody obnoxious. There was a fair amount of noise in the foyer, but it was certainly within bounds.
Was it balance?
When I came to vote, I went over and talked to you. And
yeah,
everybody was doing good. They were standing in line to sign the petition, so I didn't see anything, Ellen.
Okay. Well, we've been getting reports that, and I wanted to squash the rumor if I could. But people felt that they were made uncomfortable here. And that isn't something we are doing. We're trying very hard, and nobody has to agree with what we're doing. You know, you just don't have to agree. I don't always agree with what you folks are doing. You know, so
I've been aware of
nobody
that
has to
sometimes.
disagree.
I've been aware of that sometimes.
Yeah. And,
Helen, you bring up a good point. This is obviously an emotional issue in town, and there are strong feelings about it. And one thing I have personally felt a little disappointing is that those strong feelings have led to a certain lack of empathy and I'll just say rudeness in meeting conduct. Rudeness in meeting conduct, people speaking out, people attacking people individually rather than their ideas. Mm-hmm. And I think it's not good for the town when that happens. And I encourage everyone,
that's what we needed to know.
Everyone to be,
Because
civil.
everybody else had a glowing report.
Well, I'm not speaking to this instance at all. I'm just saying in general, I've seen instances where someone has spoken at a meeting and other people have literally shouted them down, and that's rude, that's inappropriate. And I would contrast that to when, and I guess it's 2 meetings ago now, when the St. Andrews folks came here and were concerned that we hadn't donated to the task force. And they felt very passionately about that, but they were very polite. And they spoke strongly, but they spoke respectfully and with candor and with clarity, and we tried to answer them with candor and clarity. And I think at the end of the meeting, not everyone agreed, but I think everyone understood. And I think all of our motives are the best for the town. We have different ways of getting there, and that's okay. But as long as it's done respectfully.
I basically just wanted to know if there was a real problem here the other day. And,
I don't know of any particular
just because what we have been
incidents.
told.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just want to get that straightened out. And most of our people are very good, and they are heartfelt in what we're doing. And it isn't a dead issue until, as the saying goes, the top lady sings. It's not a dead issue at all. And we very well may get there. There's always hope, and you never give it up.
Yeah, sure.
And that's what I want to convey. Thank you.
And I think Helen's point is, I think people were concerned that they had overstepped boundaries. And so just to confirm, did Michelle have any complaints or filed or any problems with the...
Well, Michelle had to speak to people a few times out there for intercepting people on the way in. And there were a few times that we had to interject, or she had to interject. And I think that's probably where that's coming from.
Okay.
I mean, I have had people come to me and state that they felt it was somewhat uncomfortable to walk through the lobby. If they didn't sign it, they felt it was sort of pitting neighbor against neighbor. And I've heard that from some people, but, you know, that's other people's opinions.
Okay.
Excuse me?
Helen.
For what he just said. Nobody had to sign those petitions. That was only for if they wanted to. It was their choice to sign. It wasn't our choice. The paper was there. They could come by and sign it if they wanted to. And we cannot, if it's a neighbor versus neighbor, you know,
Right,
that's not our fault.
Right.
But I mean.
As we
it's
said,
their choice.
it's an emotional issue, and people feel pressures, whether they're real or imagined, in these
Because we had a
situations.
beautiful day after the Senior Appreciation Day, you know.
Yeah,
We had everybody from everywhere, even the hospital people. They even stopped by and looked at them, but they said, we can't sign you, so we realize that, we know that, you know. And everything was fine. And I was just really surprised when we were told last night that this was down here,
Well,
and
it's
this
a-
was the only place.
it's a small town, and once rumors get started, you know they go.
Well, that's true. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else for the public forum session?
This is the first public forum.
This is the first public forum, the well-known first public forum. We will have the second public forum. Going once, going twice. We're now on to old business, and the first item under old business is the St. Andrews Task Force Activity Report. I'll turn the floor over to Valerie.
Okay. Well, I think the biggest news is that there is going to be a public community meeting on Tuesday, November 20th at 6 p.m. at the Boothbay Region Elementary School Gymnasium. And the consultants that the task force has hired to create a second opinion, they're calling it a second opinion study on the health assessment for Boothbay, for the Boothbay region, will be there. And also the legal counsel will be there as well that the task force has hired. So they'll be answering questions and doing presentations on their work that they've been doing. So it would be important for anybody who's interested in the issue to come. It'll also be a public input, so people will have a chance to give their opinions on either way. So it's open to everybody in the community to come and voice their thoughts. And so again, that's at 6 p.m. next Tuesday at the elementary school gym. And I think otherwise, all the work groups are continuing to just move along with the work that they've been doing. There's also a community dinner that the task force is planning that'll be November 30th, and you'll see signs and things in the paper about that. So moving along. And I forwarded you the volunteer newsletter update that Peggy Powis puts together each week, which is a great compilation of what each group is doing. So I think that will be very helpful to keep updated with what's going on, because sometimes it's hard to just hear a quick report, so that might help.
Is there a meeting tomorrow with Lincoln County Healthcare? I thought I had heard that someplace.
It was just confirmed earlier. There is a meeting with Lincoln County Healthcare. Sorry about that. It's just a few people from Lincoln County Healthcare, I think. Jim Donovan and I can't go to it. I'm not going to be there, so I'm not sure. Jim Donovan and some of the senior members of their team are going to meet with the task force members.
Mm-hmm.
So that is at 10 a.m. at the hospital in one of their rooms. I think it's the Cochrane Consulting Room.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully they'll be doing some interfacing there before the public meeting. So I know that...
Is that not a public meeting?
I think it is a public meeting,
Okay.
as far as I know. But again, I can't be there, so...
Okay. And do we know what they're talking about?
Yes, they're just going to talk about updating on... Sorry, I'm really sorry. let me check, because I couldn't make it. Excuse me. And I believe you got the agenda, but it's just to talk about, oh, crikey. What the iVantage health report will be analyzing,
Mhm.
and how they can tie into the data that was given from the Lincoln County Healthcare Report, and doing interviews with some of the Lincoln County Healthcare representatives for the iVantage Healthcare Report, and just, I think, mostly talking about those two reports.
Okay.
And how they can tie in together.
Okay, so my takeaway is it's a setup meeting for those reports? And
Yeah,
for-
the reports
for
are moving
iVantage's-
quickly. They're going to be done by the end of this year.
Yeah.
So they're going to do interviews with community members, interviews with Lincoln County Healthcare.
And the task force
hopefully.
has gone ahead and signed the contract with,
They have
I forgot, iVantage or?
iVantage, yep.
iVantage.
They have signed the contract,
Mhm.
and they will, they'll do work in quarters. So we are raising money for the Second Opinion Fund.
Yeah.
That fundraising is happening at the First Bank, and so the work will be done quarters and hopefully be completed when the fundraising is completed.
Okay.
And that goal is for the end of this year to have the report done.
Has the task force had any further discussion of their structure? It's a month ago now, we had a conference call with our lawyer who was concerned about the structure of the task force and the ability to hire lawyers and to file lawsuits, and felt that it in fact may not be appropriate structure. And I think I asked you to go back and raise that issue with the task force, and I'm not sure.
We talked about
what's
it.
happened.
We talked about it. The legal force, the legal counsel for us, for the
Mhm.
task force, thinks that it's a strong message to have all the towns have an
Sure.
inter-town agreement.
Sure.
And so the task force strongly feels that it can continue working as an inter-town agreement, since it's such a short period of time. I mean, it's 5 months or 6 months now until it's slated to close. So they've been feeling that, and I feel too, that, to try and create a corporation and create a nonprofit organization in that amount of time is going to be.
Oh, it's a trivial event to create a nonprofit. You can do that in a matter of 2 or 3 days.
Okay, I guess you've
Yeah,
done it
I-
more than me.
I'm concerned about the structure. Let's get this clear. I love the task force. I support the task force. But I'm concerned about the structure. The municipal structure was a good one to start with, because, as you say, when things hit the deck, we needed to react quickly. It got representation of the 4 towns. There was a structure and an organization that they could work in, and I think all of that was good. As we go on in time, I personally think the municipal structure becomes inappropriate for a variety of reasons, and one of which we touched upon. By law, only the selectmen can vote to engage in legal action. And I know the task force feels that the legal action that you're going to take and, I guess, reveal on the 20th doesn't really fit in that box, but I think that's a gray area. And I'm concerned. And I'm concerned because, the task force is going to start playing with the big boys. You're going to have a consultant. You're going to be talking with Maine Health lawyers. And you got to do it right, or you're going to be behind the 8 ball before you even start. So that's one concern I have.
Yeah. I mean, things have certainly been moving quickly,
Yeah.
and a lot, I think, has happened in the 3 months that the task force has been organized.
I understand that, but it's 3 months, and I think the initial structure was good. I think it's time to consider other structures. You can't meet in private. And every successful negotiation that I've ever seen starts with a small number of people sitting around a table and having an open and honest discussion. And that's hard to do in a public forum when you have a lot of people and when you have press and when people tend to dig in their heels when they get that situation. And so that's I think, hamstringing the task force in making progress. You know, by law, if you're a town organization, and I think you are, I think the task force is a town organization, I shouldn't say you, we are, task force is a organization, you've got to seek competitive bids for contracts. You know, I don't think we did that, and no one's going to raise a red flag, but sooner or later, it's going to become an issue. Anything over $5,000, you should seek competitive bids. And I think that's hamstringing you. I think if you were a 501c3, you could add other members to your steering committee. And Lord knows you guys are getting stretched thin. And I think it would be a benefit to be able to take someone like Peggy and move her onto the steering committee. And you can't do that now.
I think it would be helpful if you would come to one of the meetings and present this to the task force. I'm not sure if the 20th is going to be a good time to do that or not.
I don't think the 20th would be the forum for that.
But there's a regular meeting on the 27th.
I'm concerned about the fundraising as well. If the task force is a municipal body, which it is, it shouldn't be soliciting funds for a political charitable cause. No matter how worthy the cause. No one is questioning that the cause isn't worthy. But that's sort of short-circuiting the town meeting budgeting process for a government organization to be doing that. 501c3, perfect fit. You can go off and march and hit it as hard as you want.
And honestly, Bill, you've kind of, I mean, I have to admit, you've kind of blindsided me here. I am not, I don't think,
talked about these at
educated.
the last
No,
meeting
yeah,
as well.
definitely. But I don't think I'm educated enough to talk about if the fundraising is legal for the municipality or not.
Valerie, I'm not expecting you to come back with an answer, but I think it's something that ought to be on the table. I think there ought to be a discussion about it. We can have the discussion about it, and maybe it still doesn't make sense. Maybe there are other reasons why it doesn't make sense. But I'm concerned that there hasn't been the discussion. And I think it would be to the task force benefit. I really, really do. I think it could operate more effectively and with more power.
All I can say is I brought it up to the task force members, and they all felt that it was stronger as a town agreement. And so I think if you did feel this way, and if our board does feel this way, we should maybe bring it to the task force as an official kind of thing.
Well, this is just my opinion. I should declare the floor to the others.
I agree with you, Bill.
Yeah, I think that it really has to be looked at, and I agree with you.
Yeah, I'm not saying it has to be done, but I think it should get looked at. I think it's not getting looked at, and I think it should get looked at. And I understand what you're saying, but a little bit, I'm going to say, you're our representative, Valerie. You should bring this forth. I'd be happy to come to the next meeting and talk about this. But
I mean, I guess I would have to say I disagree. I think that the hospital issue is very important to what our municipality is and to adding to our municipality. So I think it's germane that it is a town activity still. I think if we got to the point where we were past the date,
I would argue it's a region issue, not a town issue. I think the town government has a very vested interest in it, and there can be a town committee that continues town-centered functions. I don't have any problem with that. I don't have any problem with the towns endorsing actions, but I think the actions themselves would be, the structure would be better coming from a 501c3. There's a forum at the end, and you can counter and talk about it then, Helen. I wrote notes.
I will, yeah, I mean, I will leave it at that. I am one member of this body, and just like I am one member of the task force,
Yeah.
so I do think it would be helpful. I feel like I'm repeating myself,
Yeah,
but
no,
just to come and
I
talk to
again,
this.
I think it should be looked at. I think there's I have serious concerns about the structure. Again, I do not have serious concerns about the task force. I don't have serious concerns about what they're doing. It's not that I don't support them. But I think the right way to go about it would be to have a separate or non-municipal organization. I think it would free you up to do fundraising. I think it would free you up to do legal. I think you may want to take legal action in the future. And I don't think you can under this current structure. So I think there are advantages.
Well, we could if we had a unanimous vote from all the selectmen.
Yeah.
Right.
Good luck.
I know, but
Anyway, that's my 2 cents. Anybody else on the task force? Now that I've monopolized. Update on the comprehensive plan committee. I saw Bob Flance here somewhere. There he is. He's hiding in the back.
I didn't know which one to speak on that.
Oh,
Just a,
it's the bike and pedestrian thing.
I was here for some.
yeah, no, I know, but we did,
Okay.
we did.
Bob Fonce, Warren County Regional Planning Commission. The survey is, the citizen survey is now online. You go to the town website and you fill out the survey. Paper copies of the survey are at the library, the Y, the chamber, and town office. We've set up subcommittees for about a half a dozen different topics. Those subcommittees have been, we forwarded the draft data and analysis sections for them to discuss or email back and forth for comments and that type of thing. And then at the next meeting, which I believe is November 29th, each of those subcommittees will review what was in those sections. So I think we're making some progress.
I think we are.
Yep.
That's all I was looking for, was just
Okay.
just an update. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is the walkability study. I'll turn the floor over to Jane.
Thanks. I'm Jane LaFleur with Friends of Midcoast Maine. I have two things to talk with you about tonight. One is the walkability study and the final report, which is now available. And the second is a new proposal that I think I sent you an email about, but I'll go into greater detail. So here are 6 copies for all of you, plus the person who's missing. And then there are additional paper copies in black and white that I've made for the audience. It's also available online on my website, and I'll send it to Tom in the morning as a link, so, or as a document, so you can put it on your website if you're interested. And Mike, please chime in anytime. But I want to thank everyone for attending the workshop. I know there were folks here in the audience that were there, and I know a number of you on the board also were. It was during Hurricane Sandy, and yet we had about 50 people attending, so that was quite a great display of interest by the community in the walkability of the town. I also want to recognize that the Welch House donated an evening to Dan Burden, to an overnight stay for free, so we didn't have to cover that cost. And there were hundreds of suggestions to improve the walkability of Boothbay Harbor from community members and from Dan Burden. The report is based on Dan's comments that we videotaped, and then also the videotaped and written comments from you folks. The people that were involved included community members, hospital directors, the transit service, the land trust, business owners, the Chamber of Commerce, town officials, town staff, everyday citizens that were interested. So it really was a great turnout. And the recommendations included safety recommendations, aesthetics, parking and circulation, business and economic development, community health, and community vitality. And I just wanted to suggest that towns that have completed studies like this with Dan Burden and have included them in their comprehensive plan have been very, very successful in getting grants for things that are included in the report. Just as an example, Camden had Dan Burden come and also did a downtown master plan, and they just received $15,000 to do a river walk, a pedestrian river walk, because of the recommendations that came from the community. So these are great connections because of the amount of community involvement. You can take one of those recommendations with community support, explain that it came from this community activity, and it could lead to future grants if you're interested. There are so many recommendations here, but I just want to urge you to take steps now while the community is active and involved, and make changes. And one idea is to set up a task force of some sort, or a 501c3, no, I'm kidding. A task force, and to try to get people motivated to set priorities, or get the comprehensive planning committee to set priorities on some of these recommendations, because that's the hard thing. What do you do first? Some towns will take the low-hanging fruit or the most obvious and visible changes that can be made first, because they affect the business community and affect the economic development in the area. So I didn't mention that we had a lot of shopkeepers also involved, and they were enthusiastic. Do you have any questions or concerns or anything that needs further explaining? Or Mike, did you want to say a few words?
Just that to echo what Jane had said, was that there is a tremendous cross-section, and I'm sure Valerie, Bill, Tom, you guys can speak to that as well. There's quite a bit of enthusiasm that was there, and I've been approached by people, both that were, when we're out on the walk, that had come out of their shops or were downtown shopping, and said that, boy, they had heard about it, they wanted to participate, they had other commitments and couldn't, and how could they do something in the future, as well as those who had participated and said, gosh, this is great. What are some of the low-hanging fruit? What are some of the things that we can do? So I think we can capitalize on some of that enthusiasm if we choose to. The other thing was, Jane had mentioned that the entire presentation had been videotaped, and she's gone ahead and posted 3 links to portions of the videotapes. Jane, you can maybe reference that, where that is online, so that others can view what the some of the elements were.
Right, actually, I believe they're on my website, but the newspaper also put links to those 3 video clips. They're just short video clips of 4 or 5 minutes of different segments of the walk audit, where Dan was talking about mini traffic circles, parking, I believe, and one other topic, I can't recall what it was, but there's just a clip, so it gives you an idea of what was said, and I can certainly make more. They're on Vimeo, Vimeo, and it's under Friends of Mid-Coast. And I can also send you the links for those. So all in all, I think it was a successful event. I know that not everybody agrees with everything. I know that there were some ideas that, well, the state won't allow us to do this, or it's a state road, or that kind of thing. And I just would suggest that towns have made incredible progress with the state. It's not the way it used to be at DOT. And over the last 10 years, they've really changed their tune. And if there's community support for changes on state roads, they are listening more than ever. So I know it's been done in many of the towns, and I just suggest not to give up. You really can set the path for your own future, and I encourage you to do that. So. Great. Any other questions or comments?
Questions for Jane?
No.
I don't have a question for Jane, but I'm just wondering, what will we do? Do we have a plan of what we can use this for? Because we did commit, a great amount of the community support and time and some of the town money to go to this. And so, Tom, is there a way we can weave this report into the comprehensive plan? I haven't been able to go to the
I think we've
meetings.
sort of agreed all along that this and the bike pedestrian plan would be
Go part of it.
along with the comprehensive plan. I don't know how we're going to do it at this point, but yeah, it certainly deserves a place there.
And I've never done any of these kinds of things before. I thought it was a lot of fun to walk around and hear everybody's suggestions. And it also, I think we should give props to our Public Works Department, because I think a lot of great things were shown about our town and how beautiful it is, even in a really poopy weather day. That it was a lot of fun to walk around with people and see. We all agreed the town was beautiful, and just some small things that we can certainly work on.
I heard from Dan Burden today, and he said that how memorable Boothbay Harbor was. And if you remember, that was one of the features, the 5 things about communities, and memorableness is one strong feature, and it makes people come back because they will remember this place. It's not anywhere USA, so to speak. But also, public-private partnerships go a very, very long way. There was just an article out in Huffington Post today about how the public-private partnerships in towns that take them on create more business vitality and stronger, lasting communities and economic growth. So I can send you a link to that article as well, but it really, that's the answer in many cases. There's no way anybody can do it alone, and we all have to do it together.
That's a wonderful segue for, I think, a potential answer to Valerie's question. First of all, I would like to second what she said about the Public Works Department. Jody does a terrific job, and the town reflects it, and I think we're all better for it. The town really is outstanding, and Jody has a lot to do with that, so I thank him for that. I noticed that a lot of the topics that we discussed about interacted with the shops and the merchants and the storefronts, and I think the chamber has a vital role in that. And to that end, I was going to suggest that we reinitialize a joint meeting between the selectmen and the chamber to talk about this and whatever else is appropriate for us to talk about. And I was going to suggest that perhaps prior to our next selectmen's meeting, maybe at 6 o'clock, we have a joint meeting with the chamber board, whoever you want to bring, and talk about the walkability issues and how we might implement those and how you might implement those. And whatever other topics.
Well, it's my understanding that the chamber used to have a merchant division, that they had in. So I think if there's some interest or something tied in with that, I would love to help.
Yeah, I don't want to constrain the meeting. I just think we should be talking, and we haven't in a while, and so let's do that. If the board thinks that's a good idea, let's plan on doing that.
Yep.
Is that a reasonable time to do it ahead of the regular meeting? That kind of works out for everybody.
I need to just see, I'd like to be able to have several board members
Yeah.
available, so that would just be a timing.
Yeah.
I'll be available, but I'm not sure that I can.
Check with your board,
everybody
see
else, but
if
I
that's a
think that would be
reasonable
great.
date, and if it's not, we could do it later on, but I don't want too long to go on before we
This next
pick that up.
next meeting,
Yeah,
26.
yeah, is that,
Is that the 26th?
I don't have a calendar in front of me.
Is it 26?
yeah, Monday the 26th.
November 26th.
So Monday the 26th at 6 PM here.
So the other topic I just wanted to quickly bring to your attention was the day after the workshop here, I received an email from the Orton Family Foundation, who is one of the organizations that I work with. They are out of Vermont, and they own the Vermont Country Store, if you are familiar with that. And they are very interested in community engagement and helping towns find new ways to engage the public. And I've worked with them in a number of different towns. But they're offering this new program, and it's merging 7 different organizations on a one-time pilot basis for a one-day workshop in early February with technical assistance provided by these 7 organizations. And it's called Building Local Civic Infrastructure, a Community Workshop. And they asked if I knew of any town that might be interested. And after the high of coming off of work here, I said, I bet Boothbay Harbor might be interested but the deadline was right then. So I put a placeholder in case you might be interested, so they have your name, and they know a little bit about you. It's not binding, but this is a program with about, I think they value the technical assistance at $20,000, sorry, that sounded good. $20,000, and it's a one-day workshop bringing together Deliberative Democracy Consortium, the Grassroots Grant Makers, the National Coalition of Dialogue and Deliberation, the New America Foundation, the Project for Public Spaces, the Orton Family Foundation, and Strong Towns. And it would take a small work group to pull it together in advance, to advertise, to do the kinds of things we did for the walkability workshop, and then hold this workshop in early February with all these partners coming in. There are in-kind costs to the community, such as providing food for the day and perhaps finding places to stay, but we'd have to find out more about that. They pay the fees of all these organizations, so there's no other cost. And the topics are on page 2. Public conversation about civic infrastructure, working groups on building blocks of local civic infrastructure,
Could you give me
a definition of
yeah,
civic
an elevator
infrastructure.
definition of civic infrastructure?
Okay, I'll read it to you. Civic infrastructure consists of the opportunities, activities, and arenas that allow people to connect with each other, solve problems, make decisions, and celebrate community. They are the fundamental building blocks of strong local democracy and strong communities, and they include physical and online spaces for citizens, civic skills and capacities, and participatory processes for policy making. It's a mouthful, but it's about improving how we engage the public and how we work together to build stronger communities.
So it's communications, processes, collaborative,
Yes.
enhancing collaborative work
Yes,
cultures
yes,
by both physical and paper processes.
yes, and electronic, virtual.
Okay.
So, they're opening this competition up to New England towns only, and each organization has asked their partners for nominations. So I threw your name into the hat in case you might be interested. Again, it's not binding, I can pull your name out. But I couldn't think of a better community that is interested in hearing from its citizens, wants to use that local strength to build a stronger community. And it was evident at the walk audit, where 50 people came out during a hurricane, and that's pretty amazing. And people care, and they want to get involved. So I wondered if you'd like to follow up with this.
Comment from the board? I don't know is my answer.
Just reading it, what kind of product comes out at the end? Again, I mean, I like this study, and I think this walkability audit, report is going to be helpful, especially where we're tying it into the comprehensive plan. But I want to make sure that we're not just going through steps to
Yeah.
do things, and that we're actually going to do things
Right.
with these suggestions. So do you think similar suggestions will come out of this process as with our walkability audit, where
Yeah.
just people can get together and have that conversation about what they'd like to improve?
I think, and again, this is an experiment, it's a one-time thing, but I think they are training people to become involved, how to become involved, teaching communities about different techniques to either, whether it's running a meeting or getting people involved in advance, holding workshops, all the other different methods of hearing people rather than just expecting people to come to a selectmen's meeting. And so how can the community put out more feelers for listening to the community? So I think that it's training for citizens, training for community officials, training for other board members that are, whether it's a chamber board member or a planning board member, just so everybody becomes better aware of how to do these things. I don't know if a final report is part of it. That's a good question, and I could ask that. If I'm involved with it, I would produce that. And that's the way we kept the cost down for Dan Burden, because I produced the report using his format. So, I definitely could ask that.
Mike, how do you feel about this? You've been a leader in these efforts and had enthusiasm for it.
My first initial reaction is why wouldn't we? We've had a great turnout. I believe, please correct me if I'm misstating this, but I believe when you talked, I think it was this past year, about strategic plans for the selectmen, I thought one of them was about civic engagement or bringing more people together,
Yep.
Whether it was at the selectmen's meeting or the town meeting. And this appears to be a tool. I know that the Orton Family Foundation has put out these proposals, and Bob, didn't we receive some of that from wasn't it talked about at the Regional Planning Commission last year? I remember hearing or writing in the minutes something about the Orton Family Foundation. So I know they've been around for a while, and they've been doing some type of work like this. I know that when we have applicants in front of the planning board, and Jeff is doing a great job of sending out notices specifically to all abutters, that people really enjoy the process of being contacted of the outreach. So I see outreach as this, and
Clearly outreach is a part of this, yeah.
yeah. So I'm curious. As Jane said, I'm coming off a bit of the high of all the enthusiasm off of it, and if it's costing other than some in-kind food and lodging, I mean, I'll start making brownies and get a bed ready. But I especially if we're in competition with other towns, I'd like to at least see an effort to go forward. And you've got my support if you would like it to help pursue and get more information. And
Yeah, I was
feedback from
fishing
you
for
guys.
that a little bit. One thing I'm concerned
Sure.
about is the bandwidth that we all have to participate in. We've got the comp plan going, we've got the task force going. There's a lot going on in town that's consuming a lot of time.
Right.
Last week I think I had a meeting every day of the week, and I'm not sure I personally have the bandwidth to take on yet another. But if there's enthusiasm, I mean, I agree with your assessment. Why not? Is maybe the right response.
And the thing was, there were a number of people that did come up to me afterwards. The gentleman that runs Mung Bean, and the one that's doing Two Salty Dogs, and over at Oak Street Provisions. It's like, geez, I really wanted to be part of this. This is good stuff, and I love seeing this. And what's next? And so I kept on hearing. So I said, there's the comp plan. There's the work that Bob is doing on the strategic, on the pedestrian bike. So February, gosh, what a great time to have a meeting. Going to bed early. So my support.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
I think we should go forward with it.
All right.
Yeah, I do. I think it's a good idea.
Maybe this can help increase our bandwidth.
That's a
That
good
would be
answer.
great.
That's a good answer. All right. Do we need to do anything else?
Yeah, so what do we do next?
So can you vote on that so I can say that you unanimously approved it with that?
I'll entertain a
Sure.
motion.
I motion that we go forward with the Orton Family Foundation to compete to bring the community workshop here to Boothbay Harbor.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
No.
All in favor? It's unanimous.
Thank you. I'll be in touch if you are selected.
Great, thank you.
And if anybody needs additional copies, I'll leave these 2 extras, or if you want to put them in the town library or whatever. And this is for you.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you. And I'll send you the link tomorrow.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Jane. I think we're ready for the bicycle pedestrian plan.
Hi, again, I'm Bob Faunce, town planner, and a while back, I went to you folks and the selectmen in Boothbay to see if you were interested in pursuing a joint bicycle pedestrian plan. The plan, these plans are very helpful in getting funding for bicycle and pedestrian improvements through the Department of Transportation. Right now, there's engineering funds were approved for the extension of Route 27 sidewalk, but while hopefully construction funds will follow, that's not necessarily the case. There's a lot of competition for that. What DOT is particularly interested in is for a community to evaluate what the needs are, what's the state of the current facilities, and what do the communities want to see in the future, and have those needs prioritized. That does not necessarily mean that the community has to start with the first project, and if that's funded at some point, then you go to the second project, or then you go to the third. A lot of bicycle pedestrian improvements are funded by a variety of programs, state and federal programs. So you take advantage when a road is going to be reconstructed, that may be priority number 5, for example, a paved shoulder on that road. But if that's the next thing up that the Department of Transportation is doing, you pursue it at that point. Anyway, it was a very interesting process. We had 15 folks from both communities participate. We had a community survey. We looked in great detail at the condition of the existing facilities, this facilities being sidewalks, paved shoulders, and in this case, there were no actual bicycle facilities in the communities. Put it this way, any dedicated bicycle facilities. We looked at all the conditions. I went and did a full analysis of all the sidewalks, for example, and met with the public works director. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Boothbay, I think Boothbay Harbor has I believe it's 6 miles of 6.1 miles of sidewalks, which is a phenomenal, it really is. And we were not looking, what we were focusing in on are either gaps in the system or deficiencies in the system. So, in any event, the committee met in October, discussed the recommendations, prioritized them, and that's what's in the plan. So there are 11 priorities, and I'll just give you these in order, and I won't go into explanation unless you like me to, but number 1 priority was construction of the Route 27 sidewalk extension to Boothbay Center, but then actually extend that onto Clifford Park, which is a park used by kids just north of the common. Completion of the paved road shoulders on Route 96 to East Boothbay. Right now, the paved shoulders are only on the Boothbay Harbor portion, not on the Boothbay portion. Doing improvements on Route 27 between the village and Southport Bridge. There are areas where either there's no sidewalk or the shoulders are very limited, and in certain locations, site distance is very limited, both horizontal and vertical, for pedestrians and bicyclists. 4 was improving constructing paved shoulders on Route 96 between East Boothbay and Ocean Point. Number 5 was an off-road connection between the Y and the Coastal Maine Botanical Garden. In this case, we weren't looking at a particular route, but the fact that we have 2 endpoints, the Y and the Coastal Maine Botanical Garden, and there ought to be a way for folks to either walk or bike or run between those 2 facilities without going on the road. 6, 7, and 8 were intersection improvements. Route 27 at the school complex, Route 27 at Hannaford, and the Boothbay Common area. 9 was improving the shoulders on Route 27 between Boothbay Center and the Edgecombe Town line. There are areas where the paved shoulders are adequate, and in some cases, right at the Edgecombe Boothbay Town line, they are very, very wide, but there's other areas where those paved shoulders go down to as little as 1.5 feet. And it's kind of tough if you're riding on a 4-foot shoulder and all of a sudden it's 1.5 feet and you've got a steep slope. So to improve those shoulders, to make them at least a minimum 4 feet. Number 10, River Road, and this is one where it's installing signage and constructing paved shoulders whenever that road is reconstructed. And finally, the Atlantic Avenue sidewalk, which is an interesting recommendation. Atlantic Avenue has areas of adequate sidewalks and areas of inadequate sidewalks, either due to width or slope, or elevation above the road. So the 2 possibilities are to improve that sidewalk where necessary, or in an ideal world, to actually move that sidewalk to the other side of Atlantic Avenue, because that's where really almost all the usage is. So that's what the plan consists of, and I'm here to answer questions and hopefully get your support for the plan so we can get this up to the Department of Transportation.
Comments from any of the board?
I would say a lot of these recommendations have a tie-in or similar to the corridor management plan that we put together as well.
Yeah.
So it's not like these are definite needs,
Right.
so.
Tom, do you have any comments?
No, I think they're all good ideas.
The only, I think they're all good ideas. The only question I had, I think you partially addressed in that I might differ with some of the priorities, and, Atlantic Avenue sidewalks need to be addressed in Boothbay Harbor. The Oak Street sidewalks need to be addressed in Boothbay Harbor. I'm not sure which, and I just want to make sure we're not locking out one for the other.
This is your plan, and if you feel that you want to add a priority, it's your plan. I try to make that clear when we started this process. And when I go to the Boothbay Selectmen, it'll be the same thing. So if you feel as the town fathers that there ought to be another priority, or maybe there should be one of the Boothbay Harbor priorities ought to be switched around, well, that's understandable. We didn't really talk too much about Oak Street because it was there and there is an alternative. There is another sidewalk that can get down to the harbor. But, I was on that same walkability audit, and Dan Burden mentioned that was an issue for him. And so if you want to add that, just say the word.
I'd be inclined to add it, but I don't want to short circuit a lot of work that you guys have done.
I mean, if you said that, well, let's forget about Route 27 going to the Southport Bridge.
Yeah, no.
That would be, probably maybe raise some heartburn from the committee members. But if you want to add a priority, that's up to you.
That's the one thing that jumped out at me when I read through the plan. And maybe there are others, but I don't know, that's the one that stuck in my head.
I agree, and I would possibly extend it to, or maybe you're already talking about this, to completing the sidewalk loop up by, past China by the Sea.
Up Union Street as well.
Up
yeah.
Union Street, and then kind of
Yeah.
fixing up the Oak Street area.
Yeah, that strikes me as a fairly high priority for the town, and yeah, if that could be added as a 13, that would be great with me.
I'll do that.
Okay.
Okay?
Would you like a vote from us tonight?
Yes, what was it? Did you have
I was just wondering about feasibility for the bicycle trails. Who's gonna be doing the, engineering?
Well,
type
you mean
of-
the connection between the Y and the?
Yeah.
Well, that, even though it's off-road, that can be funded by the Department of Transportation.
Oh, we can?
I don't know what the latest figures are for the Botanical Garden, but in 2010, I think it was 90,000 visitors.
I think they're getting close to 100 for this year.
100.
Yeah, when you start talking about that as
Right.
being, we've got really two premier destinations on the peninsula. We've got Botanical Garden, and we have Ocean Point. I mean, we just know people from all over go to both of those locations, and so they're important. They're important for the economy, important for tourism. So I guess, long story short, is that is fundable by the Department of Transportation.
Okay.
It depends on what program. There are a variety of programs, depending on match and other things, but, and if it was Department of Transportation, then they would do the engineering of that. And it would have to be off-road, it would have to be handicap accessible, which is probably a minimum of 8 feet wide with an all-weather surface. And slopes that would, don't exceed the 1 to 12 handicap
Yeah.
standard.
I've taken a wheelchair around the Botanical Garden walks, and some of them are challenging.
I think this is a very good study, and I think we should go forward with it. And I think, everybody, I've been around a long time, everybody wants to know where the bicycle trails are. And I'm not sure in Boothbay Harbor that we'll be able to do it, because we don't have all that much room, but we certainly can give a stab at it, I think. Don't you?
Yes, I do.
And it's certainly true. I see an increasing number of recreational cyclists going
Yeah,
around in the
I do
summer.
too.
There's a large contingent of it, and it seems to be growing.
And really, from 96 to Ocean Point, I see a lot of bicycles out through there in the summertime.
And some paved shoulders there would make it safer. This study is, this plan, while we had semi-professional bicyclists on the committee, it really is, these facilities are more aimed towards the recreational bicyclists. that aren't comfortable in trying to keep up with the speedy traffic
Yeah.
and want a sense of safety. That's why, for example, you know, the more serious bicyclists have absolutely no problem on Route 27 going from Boothbay Center up to Edgecombe. But the recreational bicyclists would sure like to see a 4-foot
Yeah.
shoulder instead of the 1.5
Yeah.
in the location. So I'll be happy to add the additional priority. Right.
Okay. Good. Do I hear a motion?
I motion that we accept the,
Accept and approve?
accept and approve the
Approve.
bicycle pedestrian plan with the addition,
Oak Street, Union Street.
with the addition of the Oak Street, Union Street sidewalk improvements.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor? It's unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
Good job, Bob.
So, there's one piece of old business that's not on the agenda, but I wanted to talk about it briefly. At our Fish Pier workshop, I think Sewell made the suggestion that we ought to look into the concrete foundation under the freezer building and should it remain. And I went and talked with Jody about that, and Jody thought that removing that was a very good idea. And the more I think about it, I think it's a good idea. And it makes sense to actually, if we do rebuild something, to rebuild it on the pier rather than on the earth, where the earth can take the heavy
Right,
trucks and the
yeah.
pier can't. So don't cover up your
Right.
load-bearing prime real estate with something that doesn't need to be there. So I would like to suggest that we seek, if we don't have already, a quote for what that additional.
Yeah, I've spoken with Eric Wood and asked him to give me a quote, since he was the one that originally quoted on taking that building down. 3 weeks ago, he said he would, he'd have it to me in a few days. I don't have it yet.
You don't have it?
I called him again today,
Yeah.
left a message for him, didn't hear back.
Jody didn't think it would be a huge amount.
No, it won't be.
So that would make some sense. But I wanted to raise it in front of the
No,
board and
that's
see if
good.
you're all in agreement with that.
Yes, I am.
Okay, good. That's all I had under old business. Under new business, I just wanted to mention that Tom has given us some material pertinent to the renewal of his contract, that we should do our homework and be prepared to talk about that at our next meeting. And that brings us to the second public forum. So I'll turn the floor over to the audience. Helen's, uh-oh,
She's gone.
she's gone.
She left right after.
I guess it's up to me then.
All right.
With regard to the first public.
Again,
forum-
George, please state your name.
I'm sorry, George Frame, Boothbay Harbor, all of that. You know, we all had a chance to see that last, what do you call it, task force meeting. And I have to say, I was very disappointed in the behavior of our representative from Boothbay Harbor at that meeting. The lady that was here earlier referred to a number of things that were said and that what she'd heard, and what she failed to understand was it was all rumor. And when a person leads off with what they're saying downtown, and I heard, you need to preface that, well, this is a rumor. And then they profess what they supposedly heard, whether they heard it or they just made it up and said it because it would be beneficial to them at that meeting. They would say it, and unfortunately, there was one gentleman there who made some very disparaging remarks about our town manager. And I thought at some point, our representative from Boothbay Harbor, Valerie, would have the leadership to stand up and say, hey, wait a minute, this is uncalled for and unnecessary, and that's just hearsay and rumor. Let's just put it to rest. And she didn't do that, and I just felt, as a citizen of Boothbay Harbor, I was kind of disappointed. Anyway, on what you had said earlier about the structure of the task force, if you have that kind of concern, I would, if I was in your shoes, I would say, well, we're going to withdraw from that task force until they can become an entity that we feel shields us from any legal action.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mike?
I just personally wanted to thank the Selectmen Town Manager for the support for the walkability audit, the allocation of the funds. The guys came out and you spent, more than 4 hours of your time, and so that was, it was very heartfelt. So I do appreciate the work that the town's done to support it. So that was one thing. There was another, at the last meeting, we talked about some stormwater management issues, Rhodes End, Atlantic Avenue, and just to let you know that Bruce Engert and I met with, I'm gonna get his name wrong, Clive from the from the DEP, anyways, the field enforcement or he's the enforcement and field service officer, and he said any work that's done on the Rhodes End Pond will need a permit, but it is a PBR permit by rule, which is $75, which the associated homeowners would be willing to pick up. So just to keep you in the loop, it's saying that there's additional research being done, and when we get more information, we'll be
Okay, yeah, my opinion is we're waiting to hear back from you guys on that. I think many of us have driven down there to take a look at that. I know I did, I know you guys did.
I went over it.
Yeah, and I think
Pretty thoroughly.
I think clearly there would be benefit to the drainage from removing the, I'll call it the alluvial fan that's in the back corner of that.
Yeah.
From an engineering standpoint, I'm pretty sure there is no benefit to making the pond deeper. But removing that silt would be a benefit.
And I have engineering information from Danielle Betts that is in the works to being produced.
Good.
Good.
And coming out, so.
Good.
More to come.
Good.
Okay.
And did I hear that there was something about a planning board interested individual?
You have a new member.
Excellent.
His name is Andrew Shepard, I believe.
Great. No, I had an opportunity to chat with him for about a half hour. Seems very interesting, very engaging gentleman. I look forward to working with him. He wants to ease into the process, and so we came up with the idea of starting as an alternate, and we have actually an application ready for review in December. So, plus there's also a training group that's MMA is offering training on, I think it's December 4th. I believe he's going to attend. I know I will, and I know that the Board of Appeals is also going, because it's going to be a mixed planning board and appeals board MMA training. So there's all good things coming for the planning board. Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Anybody else? Going once, going twice?
Well, I guess I would just like to say.
Mary,
I
please
wasn't
please state your name.
Mary Neal, Boothbay Harbor. I would just like to say, in response to from listening to the discussion, I feel that Valerie Augustine is probably put in a very, impossible position to be expected to have known if there were rumors that could have been stated that they were rumors.
Well, they
She
were,
didn't
because
know.
they clearly stated, they said.
Right, but she may not have known, and so I really
This is
think
what
that
they're saying
Val-
downtown, is how they preface their conversation.
I
To me,
just
that's
think
rumor.
that, whenever you're in the midst of an emotional situation, that to try and dispel the emotion, is often impossible to do. And so I don't think that, I don't see that as something that Valerie could have done, or should probably have even tried.
Thanks, Mary.
Thank you. I guess I would say something. The reports of Tom's comments were given to me as report, not rumor, that Tom had mentioned that there was a problem with the petitioners that were for the St. Andrews Task Force here in Boothbay Harbor, and people got upset about his negative comments at the meeting. I would say the Board of Selectmen has voted that I be a representative on the task force. I fully support the task force. I think that they're moving forward and getting some great progress done and some impressive work done in the past 3 months. We have never, as a board, steered Tom in a particular direction or told him what he has to support, whether he needs to support the hospital's closure or whether he needs to support the task force and be against the hospital's closure. So I don't hold anything against him for his feelings on the issue. All of us have opinions on the issue. All of the townspeople, I think, have opinions on the issue. So I felt last night to just let the comments go and move on. And that was how I chose to do it. I don't think they were appropriate. to call for the firing of a town manager for his opinions and what he feels is the best
Yeah,
viewpoint
let's-
to take as a town manager.
Let's be clear. Tom's actions are blameless here, I believe, and we shouldn't focus on that. But I think, and Tom has 100% of my support, and I believe the support of the entire board. I must say, and I have not been able to view that meeting yet. It was not up on the BRC TV blog yet. But I have been to many of the earlier meetings, and there were comments there that I felt the chair or the board collectively, and I wouldn't single you out, should have exerted more control, because it's all right for people to disagree, even on emotional issues, but you don't have to resort to personal attacks and name-calling, and that has happened, and that's not good for our town, and we shouldn't do that. I think in general, the solution will come from more collaborative work rather than divisive work, and I keep trying to push people in that direction. But it's an emotional issue, and there are lots of opinions and lots of points for any hypothesis you tend to put out there. So, but I want to focus more on the character of how we carry on that conversation. And the more civil we can be, the better off we'll be. That's my school marm moment.
And just to clarify one thing, Valerie, I don't think anybody wants to see the hospital closed. Everybody here wants to see it stay open. But what we need to understand is that the talk of public funds, as those on the task force have referred to support the hospital, is what folks are opposed to. Nobody wants to see the hospital closed. Heck, I was a patient in the emergency room 2 nights ago. Nobody wants to see it closed, Valerie. You have to understand, nobody wants to. You just said there was 2 camps. There's those that want to see it closed and those that don't. That's not the fact at all.
I guess I mean maybe those who have accepted Lincoln County Healthcare's decision to close the hospital.
Or Maine Health's decision to close the hospital.
It was the Board of Lincoln County Healthcare that
Right.
suggested to
And
Maine
Maine Health,
Health, right, to do it.
Any other public forum comments? Going once, going twice? That moves us to executive session. I don't believe we have any tonight. That leads us to warrants. Do I hear a motion?
I move we approve the warrants upon review.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the warrants upon review. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion passes. And that leads us to the last item on the agenda.
Move we adjourn.
And a second.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded that we adjourn. There can be no discussion. All in favor? We are adjourned. Thank you all.